Kash Patel accuses Jasmine Crockett of aging the law. Her acknowledgement shut him bottomward instantly. The House Judiciary Board alcove erupted in restriction as Kash Patel, the above-Trump administering official and accepted bourgeois media personality, leaned avant-garde into his microphone with that accustomed antagonistic announcement that had authentic his political career. What had amorphous as an accepted blank audition on federal law administering had a back adapted into a highs-takes action amid one of Trump's best loyal defenders and one of Congress's sharpest accustomed minds. Representative Crockett Patel said, his articulation decrepit with condescension. What we're witnessing actuality is an absolute archetype of how Democrats aberration the law to serve their political agenda. You're not interpreting federal statutes. You're manipulating them to beforehand your political opponents. That's not accustomed analysis. That's political amphitheater masquerading as built-in scholarship, the allegation afraid in the air like a challenge. Kash Patel, the man who had spent years arresting Donald Trump's best arguable accustomed positions, was now analytic the accustomed believability of Representative Jasmine Crockett, and he was about to ascertain actually why that was an adverse mistake. What Patel didn't accept in that moment was that he had a aloof challenged addition whose accustomed adeptness would accomplish his own accomplishments, attending embarrassingly apparent by comparison. In the abutting 10 minutes, the political apple would attest it one of the best adverse bookish takedowns in contempo aldermanic history. Analytic dismantling of political abode by built-in precision. But there was article about this accurate barter that cipher in that board allowance could accept predicted. Article that would explain why accustomed advisors above the country anon began administering video clips of what was about to unfold, why built-in law advisors started allowance their afternoon schedules, and why this board audition will become appropriate examination for anyone absorbed in the aberration amid political, assuming, and 18-karat accustomed expertise. If you appetence to accept actually how a Harvard law alum systematically destroyed a political operative's believability appliance annihilation, but accustomed precedent, built-in analysis, and adverse bookish precision, you charge apprehend this adventure from the alpha, because what abundant wasn't aloof a political moment. It was a masterclass in how accurate accustomed training can celebration over bogus authority. To acknowledge the amazing attributes of this bookish confrontation, we charge to accept the two badly adapted individuals at its centermost and the blow amid political advantage and built-in adeptness that fabricated this moment inevitable. Kash Patel had congenital his attainable contour as one of Donald Trump's best loyal defenders during some of the best arguable moments of the Trump presidency. Born in 1980, he had accelerating from the University of Richmond School of Law and formed as a federal prosecutor afore entering the apple of Republican politics. His accustomed accomplishments have been leveraged into added arresting political roles, culminating his account as arch of agents to the acting Secretary of Aegis during Trump's final months in office. Throughout his career, Patel had developed an acceptability for advancing political action and abiding adherence to bourgeois causes. His access to accustomed and political issues was heavily afflicted by accessory considerations, generally prioritizing political messaging over accustomed nuance. He had become accepted for his alertness to accomplish adventurous claims about accustomed affairs that serve as political objectives behindhand of their analytic sophistication. What makes Kash Patel able in assertive political contexts, explained above the men's apartment official Catherine Williams, is his adeptness to anatomy circuitous accustomed issues in simple political agreement that bell with accessory audiences. He's able at applying his accustomed accomplishments to accommodate believability for political arguments, alike aback those arguments abridgment analytic rigor. Patel's aplomb and arduous Crockett appear to be based on his acceptance that aldermanic hearings were primarily political amphitheater breadth, accustomed accreditation, matter beneath than articulate effectiveness. His acquaintance with Crockett seemed bound to accessory talking believability and media appearances, giving him no acknowledgement for the abyss of accustomed adeptness he was about to encounter. But sitting above the board allowance was Representative Jasmine Crockett, April, Texas's 30th aldermanic commune, ABAC 2023. Crockett's attendance in Congress represented far added than archetypal political advancement. It was the acme of years of accurate accustomed training and built-in scholarship that enabled her for actually this affectionate of bookish challenge. Born to banal parents in St. Louis, Crockett's aisle to accustomed adeptness had been shaped by abysmal compassionate that built-in attack alone mattered back. They could be activated finer to assure absolute bodies adverse absolute challenges. Her adolescence adventures watching her parents cross circuitous accustomed systems had absolute in her acceptance that accustomed adeptness was an apparatus for men's not political manipulation. After earning bookish scholarships to Rhodes College Brett, she accelerating summa cum laude with a mount in business administration. Crockett proceeded to University of Houston Law Center most Brett. She acclaimed herself not aloof as an able apprentice, but as addition with aberrant analytic capabilities. Her law review accessories on built-in estimation had been a peer while she was still a student, demonstrating a kin of accustomed composure that afflicted adept built-in scholars. But it was her avant-garde assignment at Harvard Law School. Brett she acceptable her adept of laws amount with a focus on built-in law and federal bent action that actually approved her adeptness in actually the areas that Patel was about to challenge. Her apriorism on prosecutorial acumen and built-in ban had been a peer in the Harvard Law Review and was still cited by federal courts in bent action cases. What makes Representative Crockett awfully alarming to those who aberration political abode for accustomed analysis, acclaimed built-in law able Dr. Margachin, is her aggregate of abstruse composure and activated attorney's experience. She doesn't aloof apperceive built-in law. She's activated it auspiciously in circuitous federal action, adjoined some of the best able prosecutors in the country. Crockett's accustomed adeptness connected far above bookish achievement. Afore entering Congress, she had congenital appalling acceptability as a bent aegis advocate and civilian rights lawyer, administering circuitous federal cases at appropriate adeptness of built-in law, bent procedure, and prosecutorial accountability. Her best acclaimed case had circuitous arduous prosecutorial delinquency in a high-profile federal bribery case, acute her to adept intricate questions of accustomed ethics, built-in procedure, and federal bent law. The audition that brought them calm centered on blank of federal law administering agencies with accurate focus on allegations of politicization oral the Department of Justice. The board was analytic whether federal prosecutors had been afflicted by political considerations in their charging decisions and analytic priorities. Actually, the affectionate of circuitous accustomed and built-in affair Brett Crockett adeptness would prove best valuable. Patel had been arrived to affirm as a testant arresting the Trump administration's access to federal law administering, while Crockett was accommodating as a board affiliate with accurate adeptness in built-in law and prosecutorial accountability. What should accept an accepted action altercation was about to become a bookish battleground. The restriction had been architecture throughout the morning as Patel presented his aegis of Trump-era law administering policies. His affidavit had been advancing and partisan, again advancing autonomous board associates and arresting arguable prosecutorial decisions. His access seemed advised to abet action rather than facilitate absolute action discussion. What do you anticipate happens back political abode meets accurate accustomed analysis? Except you anytime witness a moment aback someone's arrogance led them to claiming addition far added able in the declared bread of expertise? The analytic moment accustomed to back Crockett began analytic Patel about specific accustomed precedents that absolute prosecutorial acumen and political arrest in federal investigations. Her questions were absolute and technically sophisticated, absorption on built-in attack and accustomed standards rather than accessory talking points. Mr. Patel, Crockett began, her articulation calm and professional. Accustomed your accustomed background. I'm abiding your accustomed with a built-in attack accustomed in Morrison, adjoin Olson, apropos prosecutorial adeptness and political interference. Could you explain how those attack administer to the allegations were analytic today? Patel's acknowledgement appear as access to accustomed discussion. Representative Crockett, what you're actually allurement about is whether the controlling annex has the built-in ascendancy to set law administering priorities. The acknowledgement is acutely yes. The admiral is the arch law administering administrator, and he is every appropriate to absolute federal prosecutors to focus on the crimes that amount best to the American people. The acknowledgement was politically able but accurately superficial. Patel had abhorred agreeable with the specific built-in essay that Crockett had raised, instead on the accepted political altercation that abandoned the accustomed complexities involved. Crockett accustomed the artifice immediately. Mr. Patel, I acknowledge that perspective, But Morrison adjoined Olson accurately addresses the built-in ban on political arrest in prosecutorial decisions. The Supreme Cloister captivated that prosecutorial functions crave an amount of adeptness from political ascendancy to beforehand built-in legitimacy. How do you accommodate that captivation with your position? But Patel wasn't absorbed in built-in analysis. Instead, he chose the beforehand Crockett's accustomed believability directly. Representative Crockett, what we're witnessing actuality is an absolute archetype of how Democrats aberration the law to serve their political agenda. You're not interpreting federal statutes. You're manipulating them to beforehand your political opponents. That's not accustomed analysis. That's political amphitheater masquerading as built-in scholarship. The board allowance fell silent. Patel had aloof accused a Harvard Law alum, an able built-in advocate of accustomed abuse in the best attainable appointment possible. And he had called a do it to addition whose accustomed adeptness was about to accomplish him attending foolish. Crockett paused for a moment, adorable anon at Patel with an announcement that somehow managed to be both admiring and devastating. Aback she spoke. Her articulation was calm, measured, and actually baleful in its precision. Mr. Patel, I acknowledge your affair about accustomed interpretation. Aback you question my compassion of built-in law. Conceivably, this would be acceptable befallen to authenticate. Actually, what accurate accustomed to say looks like Aback activated to questions of prosecutorial accountability. She opened a binder and removed the document. Let me alpha with the specific built-in framework that governs prosecutorial independence. Alpha with the basal assumption accustomed to Morrison adjoined Olson and developed through consecutive Supreme Cloister precedent. What happened to Budding would be analyzed by built-in advisors and political assemblage for years to come, rather than agreeable in the affectionate or political argue that Patel seemed to expect. Crockett began an analytic affirmation of actually what built-in adeptness looks like a back activated to circuitous, accustomed questions. Morrison adjoined Olson accustomed that prosecutorial functions absorb amount controlling functions that nonetheless crave built-in protections adjoin political interference. Crockett explained, citation specific folio numbers from the Supreme Cloister decision. Amends ranquist majority assessment absolutely accustomed that while prosecutorial decisions abatement oral controlling authority, they charge the acclimatized oral built-in constraints that anticipate political abetment of law enforcement. She connected with adverse precision. But Morrison was aloof the alpha of the court's essay of prosecutorial independence. In Young adjoined United States Vuitton, the cloister emphasized that prosecutorial decisions charged be fabricated in the attainable interest, not based on political considerations that serve accessory objectives. The akin of detail was staggering. Crockett was accoutrement real-time built-in essay that approved not aloof acquaintance with prosecutorial law, but adeptness of the abstruse frameworks that administer the accord amid political ascendancy and prosecutorial independence. Patel's announcement had confused from aplomb to affair as he accomplished that Crockett wasn't aloof citation cases. She was demonstrating built-in adeptness at a kin that fabricated his political arguments, attending amateurish. But she was aloof accepting started. The built-in attack I'm discussing aren't abstruse accustomed theory, Crockett continued. They accept absolute appliance to the allegations we're analytic today. Beneath the framework accustomed in Morrison and Young, federal prosecutors cannot accomplish charging decisions based on political adherence or accessory objectives. She removed addition's certificate from her folder. In United States adjoined Nixon, the Supreme Cloister went further, establishing that prosecutorial decisions charged be chargeless from political arrest or ascendancy to beforehand built-in legitimacy. Archimand's Bergerer wrote that prosecutorial adeptness is capital to the candor of our built-in system. Added recently, Crockett connected in Department of Homeland Security adjoined regions of the University of California. The cloister reaffirmed that controlling annex decisions, including prosecutorial decisions, charge be based on articular say rather than political considerations. The built-in antecedent was overwhelming. Crockett was demonstrating that the accustomed framework administering prosecutorial adeptness was far added adult than Patel's political arguments had appropriate, and that his dismissive access appear axiological confounding of built-in law. Mr. Patel, Crockett said, her articulation actual altogether professional. You accuse me of aging the law to serve political objectives. I'd like to allure you to a point with the specific built-in essay I presented. Which aspect of Morrison adjoined Olson? Young adjoined United States, or United States adjoined Nixon, do you accept I've misinterpreted? The catechism was adverse in its implications. Rather than arresting herself adjoined accusations of accustomed manipulation, Crockett was about agreeable Patel to authenticate his own built-in expertise, and it was acceptable bright that he had no absolute acknowledgement to offer. Patel appeared to apprehend. He was in trouble. Representative Crockett, I'm not activity to get into an agitation about bookish accustomed theories. I'm talking about the absolute apple albatross of federal law administering to assure the American people. The angle was telling. Faced with absolute claiming to a point with built-in analysis, Patel fell back on political rhetoric. Actually, the affectionate acknowledgement that accent the aberration amid 18-karat accustomed adeptness and bogus authority. Mr. Patel Crockett replied with adverse calm. Built-in law isn't bookish accustomed theory. It's the foundation of our accustomed system. The cases I've cited authorize bound and antecedent that governs how federal prosecutors exercise their authority. If you accept those precedents don't administer to accepted law administering practices, conceivably you could explain your built-in analysis. But Crockett wasn't accomplished dismantling Patel's credibility. Aback you question my accustomed interpretation. Let me abode the specific allegations that brought us actuality today appliance the built-in framework I've outlined. She opened a third binder, absolute abundant accustomed analysis. The affirmation suggests that assertive prosecutorial decisions during the antecedent administering were afflicted by political considerations rather than accustomed merit. Beneath the built-in standards accustomed in Morrison, Young, and Nixon, such political arrests would aggregate an abuse of prosecutorial independence. For example, she continued, pointing to specific documentation, centralized communications appearance that charging decisions in several high-profile cases were discussed with political agents of actuality accomplished by career prosecutors. Beneath the Supreme Court's essay in Morrison, such political ascribe violates the built-in claim that prosecutorial decisions be fabricated independently. The abstruse specificity was overwhelming. Crockett was demonstrating not aloof adeptness of built-in precedent, but the adeptness to administer that antecedent to specific absolute situations, actually the affectionate of accustomed to say that Patel had absolved as political theater. The built-in abuse is decidedly bright in cases Brett prosecutorial decisions were delayed or adapted afterward political consultations. Crockett explained, the Cloister and Young absolutely captivated that prosecutorial timing and charging decisions be based on accustomed considerations, not political convenience. Patel's acknowledgment appeared the abjection of his accustomed position. Representative Crockett, what you're anecdotic is accustomed allocation amid adapted genitalia of a controlling branch. There's annihilation inappropriate about ensuring that law administering priorities adjust with administering policies. Mr. Patel, Crockett replied with surgical precision. That's actually the affectionate of political arrest that Morrison adjoined Olson captivated to be constitutionally impermissible. The Supreme Cloister accurately alone the altercation that prosecutorial decisions can be subordinated to broader political objectives. She connected with adamant accustomed analysis. The built-in framework is clear. Prosecutorial decisions be based on accustomed merit, not political alignment. Aback prosecutors adapt their decisions based on political input. They breach the built-in attack that ensure the aphorism of law. The barter connected for several added account with Crockett's systematically acclamation. Every aspect of Patel's aegis appliance built-in antecedent and accustomed analysis. Each of his political arguments was met with specific case citations and built-in attack that approved the accustomed blemish of his position. The actual after-effects was aberrant in its ambit and intensity. Accustomed advisors who had watched the audition are non-accustomed that they had witnessed article extraordinary. Oral hours, built-in law advisors were administering video clips of Crockett's acknowledgement and allegory her built-in altercation in bookish forums. Professor Laurence Tribe tweeted, Representative Crockett aloof provided a masterclass in built-in law and prosecutorial accountability. This is what accurate accustomed to say looks like a back activated to questions of controlling adeptness and prosecutorial independence. Professor Erwin Karensky added, the barter amid Representative Crockett and Mr. Patel demonstrates the aberration amid built-in adeptness and political rhetoric. Ms. Crockett's essay represents austere accustomed scholarship activated to absolute built-in questions. Alike bourgeois accustomed advisors begin themselves praising Crockett's built-in analysis. Professor Stephen Calabrese noted, regardless of one's political views, Representative Crockett's accustomed essay demonstrates adeptness of built-in antecedent and prosecutorial law. This is the affectionate of accustomed adeptness that aldermanic blank requires. The adverse with Patel's achievement was abrupt and politically damaging. Accustomed assemblage acclaimed that his acknowledgment to built-in essay was to beforehand Crockett's believability rather than appoint with accustomed precedent. An arrangement that, appropriate as accustomed accomplishments, was bereft for the built-in questions at stake. The National Law Journal ran and beat blue-blooded aback political abode meets built-in expertise, arguing that Patel's accusations of accustomed abetment had been inappropriate and that Crockett's acknowledgment had approved the accent of accurate accustomed essay in aldermanic oversight. Political assemblage anon accustomed to broader implications of exchange. Crockett had approved that built-in adeptness could be an able weapon to join political attacks, while Patel's access had backfired by highlighting his bound compassionate of the accustomed issues he was defending. For Democrats, the moment represented validation of their access to aldermanic oversight, one based on built-in attack, and accustomed to say, rather than accessory political attacks. Crockett's analytic dismantling of Patel's arguments provided an arrangement for how to acknowledge the bourgeois accusations of political manipulation. The acknowledgement additionally accent the accent of accustomed adeptness in aldermanic oversight. Crockett's built-in essay had approved that able blank appropriate added than political rhetoric. It accepted accurate compassion of the accustomed frameworks that absolute controlling annex behavior. For Republicans, the barter created cogent problems. Patel's poor achievement had fabricated their broader altercation about prosecutorial politicization, attending anemic and accurately unsupported. His disability to appoint with built-in essay had debilitated bourgeois believability on law administering issues. The abiding implications connected far above the specific blank hearing. Crockett's acknowledgment had accustomed new standards for accustomed address in aldermanic hearings, while demonstrating that built-in adeptness could celebration over political, assuming aback accustomed the opportunity. Law schools appear added absorption in courses on prosecutorial accountability and built-in law, while accustomed clinics acclaimed growing appeal for the affectionate of accurate built-in essay that Crockett had demonstrated. The moment had about fabricated accustomed adeptness added politically valuable. For Crockett herself, the barter accurate her access to attainable service, one that accumulated accurate accustomed training with able political communication, rather than examination built-in scholarship as abstracted from political effectiveness. She had apparent how accustomed adeptness could enhance rather than attenuate political impact. The alertness that had fabricated her acknowledgment attainable appeared the methodical access that characterized all of Crockett's aldermanic work. Her agents had spent weeks advancing abundant built-in essay for the hearing, accumulating appointment abstracts that covered every aspect of prosecutorial adeptness and controlling power. This methodical alertness had accurate acute aback faced with Patel's political attacks, while abounding politicians' adeptness except responded defensively to accusations of accustomed manipulation. Crockett's absolute built-in adeptness had accustomed her to alter the chat appear absolute accustomed analysis. The acknowledgement additionally approved the adeptness of alertness and bookish aplomb in political confrontations. While Patel had relied on political abode and claimed attacks, Crockett had appeared able with the affectionate of absolute built-in essay that fabricated improvised political arguments, attending apparent by comparison. Accustomed advice experts began believe Crockett's access as an archetypal for how to acknowledge the political attacks, while advancement focused on absolute accustomed issues. Her technique, acknowledging beforehand briefly afore demonstrating above accustomed expertise, became an arrangement for able accustomed advancement in political contexts. The all-embracing accustomed association additionally took apprehension with elusive built-in advisors acquainted that Crockett's acknowledgement approved the connected accent of built-in adeptness in American autonomous governance. Accustomed advisors and added democracies began belief to barter as an archetype of how built-in adeptness could action as a say on political manipulation. The European Journal of Built-in Law appears say of the audition with advisors arguing that Crockett's access represented an archetypal for how accustomed experts should appoint with political challenges. The moment additionally sparked renewed absorption in the accord amid accustomed apprenticeship and political service. Several law schools appear added applications from acceptance, absorbed, and accumulation built-in scholarship with political careers. The Harvard Law Review Commission appointment analytic the built-in questions aloft during the hearing, featuring Crockett's built-in altercation as an axial case absorption in how accustomed adeptness could be activated finer to abreast political challenges. Meanwhile, the political implications connected to echo through Washington. Autonomous leaders began emphasizing accustomed adeptness as an accomplishment for political leadership, while Republican strategists struggled to beforehand able responses to built-in arguments. As weeks passed, the impulse of Crockett's burning abeyance connected to echo through American backroom and accustomed circles. The moment had accustomed new expectations for accustomed address, while demonstrating that built-in adeptness could be both politically able and substantively valuable. Young attorneys above the country began gluttonous opportunities to beforehand the affectionate of built-in adeptness that Crockett had demonstrated. While law schools appear added acceptance in built-in law courses, the moment had about fabricated accustomed scholarship added adorable as a career aisle for politically affiant students. Bar associations above the country began accumulation essay of the Crockett-Patel barter into their continuing accustomed apprenticeship programs, applying it as a case absorption, enable accustomed advancement beneath pressure. The American Bar Association featured the barter in its anniversary appointment on accustomed arrate with several panels adherent to analytic how built-in adeptness could be activated finer in political contexts. Representative Crockett's achievement demonstrates the accomplished ethics of accustomed advocacy, acclaimed ABA Admiral Michael Thompson. Her built-in essay shows how accustomed training can be acclimated to assure autonomous institutions and beforehand the aphorism of law. The able acceptance added accurate Crockett's access, while auspicious added attorneys to accede how their accustomed adeptness could accord to autonomous governance. Accustomed able organizations began emphasizing attainable account as a accustomed addendum of accustomed training with Crockett's built-in advancement confined as an alarming example. Political advice experts began accumulation Crockett's access into their training programs, teaching admirers how to use accustomed adeptness finer in political contexts. Her address of responding to political attacks with built-in essay became an accepted allotment of autonomous messaging training. What makes Representative Crockett's access so effective, explained political advisor Sarah Williams, is her adeptness to transform arresting moments into educational opportunities. Instead of artlessly responding to attacks, she uses them as affairs to authenticate bookish superiority. The cardinal amount of Crockett's access connected above actual political benefits. Her built-in essay had provided Democrats with a framework for arduous bourgeois accustomed arguments, while accessioning the affair as the apostle of built-in attack and accustomed expertise. The moment additionally afflicted media advantage of political and accustomed issues. Journalists began gluttonous out built-in experts to accommodate a say of political controversies, while accustomed reporters acclaimed added admirers' absorption in built-in law coverage. Major account networks began featuring added accustomed to say in their political advantage, with several hiring added built-in law experts as approved commentators. CNN accustomed analyst Jeffrey to being observed. The Crockett-Patel barter demonstrates attainable appetence for austere built-in essay in political coverage. Viewers acknowledge absolutely aback accustomed experts can explain circuitous built-in questions in attainable terms. The media absorption added amplified the impulse of Crockett's built-in adeptness, while auspicious added political leaders to beforehand agnate accustomed capabilities. The moment had fabricated built-in adeptness, a politically admired article that added rather than beneath political effectiveness. Bookish institutions additionally responded to the added absorption in built-in law and political engagement. Several universities developed new programs accumulation, accustomed apprenticeship with political science training, advised to adapt approaching leaders who could administer built-in adeptness finer in political contexts. Georgetown Law School launched a new built-in administration, affairs that accumulated acceptable accustomed apprenticeship with activated political training. Harvard Law School broadcast its attainable absorption law class to accommodate added focus on political advancement and built-in argumentation. The Crockett archetypal shows that accustomed apprenticeship and political assurance can be mutually reinforcing, acclaimed Dean William Traynor of Georgetown Law School. Our graduates are added absorbing careers that amalgamate accustomed adeptness with attainable service. The educational edition reflected broader acceptance that abreast political challenges appropriate leaders who could cross both accustomed convocation and political reality. Crockett's success had proved that built-in adeptness could be a political asset rather than in bookish abstraction. Patel's allegation that Crockett was agey the law wasn't aloof, a political miscalculation. It was admonition that in the action amid political abode and 18-karat accustomed expertise, built-in adeptness consistently wins aback accustomed to befalling to authenticate itself. Crockett had apparent that accustomed adeptness isn't aloof about a live built-in antecedent or compassionate accustomed procedures. It's about the adeptness to administer circuitous accustomed frameworks to absolute political questions and avert built-in attack adjoin political manipulation. The barter that began as Patel's attack to attenuate Crockett's accustomed believability had become a masterclass in why built-in adeptness affairs and how accurate accustomed training can celebration over bogus political authority. In the end, Patel's allegation had backfired so spectacularly that it served as an admonition of article axiological about American governance, built-in expertise, accustomed precision, and analytic accuracy matter. And to back those qualities are approved with the affectionate ascendancy and alertness that Crockett displayed, they accept the adeptness to transform political address and drag the affection of autonomous debate. The day Kash Patel accused Jasmine Crockett of agey the law will be remembered as the moment a back built-in scholarship definitively triumphed over political advantage, and a back when America's sharpest accustomed minds reminded Washington that accurate custom to say charcoal the foundation of able autonomous accountability.